Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the Voice of Reason. Today is day 52 of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and we're going to start our analysis this day by jumping right in on kind of where we left off yesterday on the sinking of the Moskva, the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet that was allegedly struck by, quite possibly, by two Ukrainian anti-ship missiles, and then was sent to the bottom of the ocean. And it's looking more and more likely that significant casualties were inflicted upon the vessel. It has roughly a 500 person crew, and initially there had been a rescue operation by the Russian military as it was being towed back to Sevastopol. We now know that probably did not occur. At this point, best estimates are that it is possible that a Turkish vessel may have assisted in some of the evacuation of some of those personnel off of that struck naval vessel. But with that being said, what we're starting to hear is that it is quite possibly that the vessel went down with all hands. So very, very unfortunate for those sailors that were on board that vessel. If that happened, we're also seeing memorial ceremonies taking place, unofficial memorial ceremonies taking place inside of Sevastopol, inside of the naval community located in that city. But the big issue for that ship. Number one, it is an older vessel, and now does that make it have a greater ability to withstand an attack? No, it doesn't. But it does give it a much more viable chance of defending itself if it had in fact been updated, or was a newer vessel able to engage and destroy inbound cruise missiles. And we don't know why it was not able to adequately defend itself against these supposedly two cruise missiles. But the most important thing is at least apparently one of these cruise missiles hit the ship, and in all probability one of the large aircraft carrier killing anti-ship missiles that the Glory class, Slava class, a former prior Soviet ship was carrying. Again, these large anti-ship missiles that are designed to destroy a U.S. aircraft carrier or significantly damage a U.S. aircraft carrier apparently detonated. So in addition to the explosive force and damage created by the supposed Neptune anti-ship missile, and that's a very large missile weighing in at almost a ton with a 300+ pound warhead. That is going to do significant damage. But more importantly, if at least one of those large missiles were to have detonated, and that would have caused probably most of the casualties on the ship, given the size of the ordnance in terms of that missile detonating. And it would have been very, very difficult for anyone, any sailors, to escape that, if in fact that did occur. And then you also have to look at the possibility of more and a variety of types of munitions then cooking off on that vessel if the fire really kind of got out of control and it got into a magazine compartment. And it sounds like from reports and intel coming in now from unofficial sources inside the Russian Federation indicates when the ship was hit, it detonated. The Neptune detonated, and then obviously caused a chain of events that happened very rapidly on board the ship. And apparently we're hearing now that the ship quite possibly sank within an hour and maybe even minutes after the attack. Now, that hasn't been confirmed. That's just kind of what's being reported. But I can't help but imagine if it was hit by one of these Neptunes, and if the one of the magazines on the ship, or one of these larger anti-ship missiles that the vessel carried, detonated, then the likelihood of extensive casualties is almost absolute. So now there's been a lot of comments in the comment section, and then just in talk in general about this incident, in terms of how is this an escalation, and a lot of people, including the watchers of this channel, really don't understand how this could be construed as a escalation. And that's fine. You don't have to perceive it as an escalation. The point is, does the adversary, does the Russian Federation see it as an escalation? Does the loss of 500 young sailors, in the eyes of Russia, is that an escalation? And the reason that Russia could see this as an escalation is that it's quite possible, from Russian perception, that the ship would not have been hit if not for direct NATO or United States support in identifying the ship. And then also we've heard about the possibility of certain technology transfers in regards to the Neptune. And again, all these roads lead to one place, and that's that, at least, again, it's not what you think. If you're a supporter of the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian state, and obviously you're against the Russian invasion, that's not the point. It is the perception of the other side. And if the other side believes that, and obviously they have certain beliefs because they've entered into this conflict, that is what their reality is. And that reality is, in all probability, that North Atlantic Treaty Organization assets were involved in the location, targeting, and quite possibly the destruction of said flagship of the Black Sea Fleet. Now, we've heard of all kinds of additional, really kind of fantastical rumors, such as it could have been a United States nuclear attack sub that torpedoed it. Well, highly unlikely. The United States does not put nuclear attack boats in the Black Sea. It's basically a big giant lake. Very, very difficult to move a nuclear submarine. This is the route that a nuclear submarine would have to take, going through the Turkish Straits into the Black Sea. And a nuclear attack boat for the U.S. It is designed for stealth, and circumnavigating these straits into the Black Sea would be, one, very, very challenging, and in all probability, the Russians would have known that said vessel would have entered the Black Sea. Compounding that, it's against treaty for the United States to send a nuclear attack boat into the Black Sea. So highly unlikely that it was a U.S. Actual subsurface asset that destroyed that vessel. I think in all likelihood, again, it's probably exactly what is being talked about. It was a operation by the Ukrainians, directly supported by the United States and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in terms of locating that vessel, and then in all probability, a Ukrainian Neptune missile, in conjunction, possible with some TB2 drones and other Ukrainian assets, may have destroyed the vessel. Now, it is possible, although unlikely, that other systems could have been moved into the area, such as we've heard reports about ground-launched harpoons, Exocets, and the Norwegian next-generation anti-ship missile, which may in fact be eventually delivered to the Ukrainians as we speak. So I would imagine right now that this is a huge escalation from the perception of the Russians. And guys, that's all that matters right now, is what do the Russians think? And if the Russians believe that and think that, then I have to wonder what is next. What is going to be the retaliation from the Russian military? Is it possible that a Russian submarine engages a U.S. destroyer in the Atlantic or the Pacific and tries to sink one, and then tries to deny that the event actually occurred? I think it's possible. It's very possible. I think escalation continues to increase rather than decrease. I mean, we're continuing to hear, be it propaganda or whatever you want to call it, the situation is becoming more likely to escalate in terms of bringing in other actors. And I think, unfortunately, it's a very, very real probability, and I don't think the sinking of that vessel is going to increase the chance of a peaceful solution. And I think, quite frankly, we've gone so far beyond the chance of any form of peaceful solution that we're really kind of rapidly heading towards something that could get just completely out of control very, very quickly at this point. And what's more unfortunate, it doesn't appear that at least the West is really understanding the ramifications of the sinking of this vessel. So that's kind of where we sit, and we're going to continue to watch things very closely. In terms of ongoing fighting, we've started to see the Russians deploy backfire bombers for the very first time within the vicinity of Mariupol. We had anticipated that this was going to occur as the fighting continues to escalate. We continue to see the Russians strike targets both in Kiev and Lviv to the west in an apparent retaliation for the strike on its surface vessel in the Black Sea. And we're also now seeing more and more reported strikes by the Ukrainian military as well on actual Russian territory. So just south of Bryansk, we understand that there has been at least one, possibly more, Ukrainian attacks against Russian territory. We believe this was a helicopter attack, and the Russians are reporting that in fact that helicopter was shot down. And then obviously we have heard reports of Ukrainian long-range artillery being used against Russian targets on the Russian side of the border between Russia and Ukraine. We've heard about further attacks in Belgorod. We have heard, again, the Ukrainian military is attempting to hit targets across the border, across the Ukrainian border, inside of the Russian Federation. So again, we're kind of seeing this continue to escalate and not decrease in the intensity of the war. We're also, as we had talked about before, anticipating a Russian move on the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk pocket area. The Russians are looking to envelop this area. We are hearing also that the Russians are utterly rubblizing Severodonetsk. It is under heavy artillery attack and has been under heavy artillery attack for some time, and we anticipate that will only increase with the continued escalations, perceived and or not. But this fighting, as we had talked about before, is going to be pivotal for continued Russian operations in this conflict. If it is not able, meaning the Russians are not able to meet certain military objectives that have been planned out and prepared for in this area, continued military operations after, if and when this operation would be a failure, then the likelihood of continued Russian operations in this conflict, I would say, start to decrease. Now, if the Russians are able to conduct a successful operation south of Izium, north of Donetsk, then in all probability we will see a continuation of operations by the Russian military along quite possibly multiple fronts at some point. Casualties. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. We've not heard a great deal. We apparently Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, had stated that as of yesterday, the Ukrainian losses were 2,500 to 3,000 killed, with up to 10,000 wounded. Now, he did say of those 10,000 wounded, he was not sure how many would survive. So that's a very interesting comment. And what we've traditionally seen from, at least from the Russian side of the conflict, and to a certain extent the Ukrainians as well, they don't necessarily count wounded soldiers who possibly die later in hospital as actual casualties. So that is something that that maybe is being included, but not included in the overall casualty figures. What's also very interesting is the Donetsk People's Republic. That is one of the pro-Russian separatist forces, specifically operating out of the large city of Donetsk, and the region of Donetsk is reporting the following casualties as of April 14th: 1,188 killed and 4,956 wounded. So you're looking at about 7,000 casualties in total for those separatist forces alone. Now, considering that they probably started the conflict with between 20 and 30,000 troops, probably on the at least initially on the lower end of that 20,000, and then with conscripts they have expanded, and volunteers they have expanded, but that's a fairly significant loss for the size of that force. We really don't know what the Russian casualties look like. We've heard anywhere from 30 to 40,000 total casualties. Some U.S. estimates indicate up to 10,000 killed. The Ukrainian government, we've heard up to 20,000. Now, we don't know if that's KIA or also injured. Again, it's very difficult to really ascertain the level of casualties at this point. But as you look at just the casualties sustained by the Donetsk People's Republic, again, that 1,188 with 4,956 wounded, you have to think that, and given the level and intensity of fighting and what we can physically see from video evidence, both sides are taking hellacious casualties in this conflict. And I think Zelensky is probably very much underestimating the casualty levels that his nation is taking now. At the same time, given the size of some of the ordnance that is being used in these conflicts, you are not going to find bodies. And you, at this point, because no one can take real tallies and who has gone missing, and you can just assume is dead or maybe just can't be located. It's very, very difficult to actually figure out the size of current casualties that are being taken. But I would guess that Ukrainian casualties are on par, if not more, than what the Russians are taking, given the amount of airstrikes the Russians are conducting, and the use of very large amounts of cruise missiles that have very large warheads on hundreds of targets throughout Ukraine. But I guess the point of this is obviously there are very heavy casualties on both sides, and we really don't know what that looks like, and we probably won't know until after the war has ended, and hopefully as a civilization here on the planet Earth, we will actually get to that point where we know that, and this conflict doesn't escalate to a point where we don't have a history. So again, that is the concern about, at least I have, in terms of what is happening right now and how this could continue to deteriorate and escalate in terms of quite possibly global war. But that's where we sit right now. We're going to continue to monitor and report. Again, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll have more very, very soon. Have a good day.